you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean,
It's
some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. For those of you that are used to tuning in on Tuesday and you are realizing, wait a second, I know there was a holiday in there, but what day is it? Yeah, it's Wednesday. I surrendered my streak of 77 consecutive episodes on Tuesday for my mental health, for my physical health, for just my overall well-being, and knowing that, hey, Tami, you got to practice what you preach. And I needed a moment. So give you a little backstory before we dive into today's topic, which is all about back to school, because we're all in it if you are a parent. And if you're not, and you still want to keep listening, I think there's going to be some stuff in here for you, especially for your inner child. So you don't have to turn off if you're not a parent, because I guarantee there's a little person in you that's still got some healing to do around elementary, middle school, high school. Yeah. And there's still that little person within you that maybe needs some of those needs met and some healing around some of those things. And so I'm hoping to be able to help with that today. But to give you a little backstory and what happened and why I postponed putting out the episode a day later was because I burnt out. Straight up burnt out. I'm a projector, which means I can go 100 miles per hour. I work really well that way until I don't. And if I don't take my foot off the gas, I will burn out. This also happens as an empath. So double whammy over here. And I know these things about myself, but there just really wasn't an opportunity until yesterday to do that. But it was kind of too late. It was like, oh, we were so close. Because last week I had spent a lot of time at F45 coaching, which I absolutely love. And that does fill my cup, but it also requires a lot of energy. So there's that, just physically, but also energetically. And we're also working on a really sweet back to school campaign. So stay tuned for that, because that will be coming out this next week. And we are offering a free week for everyone. And we're going to have some awesome giveaways and things for that entire week. So maybe you can come check it out and come play with me. Come work out with me. But anyway, so I spent a lot of time there coaching and working on stuff for that. And then I went right into the Taste of Madison. So I was doing social media for them, which is super fun for me. It's a really creative outlet. I love experiencing the event that way, because typically large crowds like that, not my jam. But I'm a very social person as well, like extroverted. I can be out there. And so it allows me to do that, when I can go up to people and be like, hey, what did you think of this food? And I can be in their face with the camera or dancing with the DJ in the middle of the street, in the middle of the day. Like, I don't care. That's fun for me. And then I need to unplug. And so when I have to go create the video and get it up on social media or get it up in the stories, I have to go and be by myself. So it's this really great balance of being an extrovert and an introvert, or, needing to clear my energy, but then go back out. And so it works really well, and I really enjoy it. Also requires a lot of physical energy, because I'm doing laps around the Capitol Square. I don't even know how many steps I had. A lot. I know it was well over 20,000, if not 30,000. And just energetically too, when you're out there around all those people, and again, having to protect your own energy also requires energy, but also giving and all this stuff. So it was a lot. And I was prepared for that. I did that last year. I knew what to expect. And so I'm thinking, okay, Monday comes around, I'm going to have my kids. Like I didn't have that time to myself to just reset, to unplug. My sister was in town. Again, all great things, but I didn't have that unplugged Tami time. And all of a sudden I felt it, because I'm thinking, okay, wait, I could do the podcast on Monday. But I'm like, wait, that's Aria's last day of summer before school starts for her on Tuesday. And so wait, and the topic was going to be about how to support your kids on back to school. So I'm pretty sure if you spent time on Monday recording the podcast and then literally had to edit it all day because it takes time to do all of this stuff behind the scenes, I would not have been present for them. And I was like, you can't do that. You're literally doing the opposite of what the podcast is about. And I don't roll like that. I try to be as transparent as I can and real. And yes, there have been a lot of times where I have been working on the podcast and haven't been able to be fully present while they're here. And I make sure to fill their cup when I can, but something about that yesterday, I couldn't do it. And even though they ended up spending the night back at their dad's because Aria wanted to sleep in her bed, on the first night of school, which I was all about. It was interesting because I think maybe a year or two ago with her going into middle school and me having all my feels about it and wanting her to be with me so I could experience that morning with her and all this. I'm like, this isn't about you, Tami. And I didn't really have that. It was interesting because I kind of not expected it, but I was almost surprised that I didn't feel that way. And I was like, ooh, you've done some healing. This isn't about you. This is literally all about Aria and what she needs. And she wants to sleep in her bed at her house, her first night going back into school, 100%. I can show up the next morning and be there and take her to school and have that moment. But it was interesting because sometimes we do those things. That would have been more about me needing to meet a need to feel needed and wanted and helpful if she would have stayed here. I'm like, no, that's not what she needs right now. So that was kind of a cool thing to witness. So yesterday with my sister and she, she's my person. A lot of people that saw her were like, you guys sound exactly alike. And actually we look a lot alike too. And we have a lot of the same mannerisms and hopefully someday I'll have her on here. But what she did for me this weekend was held up a mirror for me without any judgment. I could just see how she was seeing me and that I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off and I was just disconnected and I was here, there, and everywhere. When I was here at the apartment, I was trying to tend to people, but then I was also like thinking, oh, I got to get this ready for Taste of Madison. And I was just, yeah. And I can just see her like, burnout, burnout, burnout. Like this airplane is going down. I could see that about how she was viewing me. And I was trying not to take it on as a judgment of feeling like a shitty mom or feeling like I was dropping the ball over here and that I'm just this irresponsible person. It's like, it wasn't that at all. It was just, girl, you got to slow down. And I think that's what hit me yesterday was I realized there are a lot of moments where I feel like I can't. I can't. And I know that's something I need to work on, but as a single mom, as an entrepreneur, doing this podcast for free, there is so much pressure. So much pressure. And yes, my kids are only going to be this age once. And that mom guilt was setting in real hard yesterday because I think of the summer that they had or their experience that they had and what we didn't do. And I'm thinking, yeah, because you opened a gym, Tami. It's not like you just like maybe started a new job or whatever. You opened a gym in July. Of course, this was a very different summer for us. And I have communicated that to them. I have let them know. I know that I opened this gym and you guys were a part of this. And we might not have been able to go out and do all these fun things this summer because I needed to be here to help build this dream so that hopefully next summer can look very different. But right now, mom's in it. And mom has to work really hard so we can get to a place where she doesn't have to work so hard and push so hard. And it is hard. And I know Andy Weins back in that episode of Words Fucking Matter would be all over what I just said. So I'm hearing him still. If you haven't listened to that episode, go. You'll be correcting so many things that I've said in here, but even then I just said, but. So I felt all of that yesterday. It just came on like a wave and we were driving down to see my niece who just moved into Madison and my sister sitting up front and I just have tears. It was like the pressure cooker just was steaming over and the tears are just coming out. And I'm just quietly sitting there like trying not to have a panic attack, even though I feel like that's what's going on inside and it's just seeping out my eyes. And she noticed and like acknowledged it, but not in a like, Tami, blah, 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 where my kids were. And I wasn't going to hide it from them either. I don't hide that stuff from my kids. But I also wasn't making a big scene about it either because I knew I need to process this another time. And I did with her after we got back and the kids came up and we were talking, and she's been there too as a single mom and entrepreneur at one time in it and like fully understands. And so to allow myself to be witnessed by someone who understands was really powerful. And it helped me do some clearing around that and release some guilt around that, but also get clear about what this needs to look like moving forward. And that's, again, how can I support my kids throughout the school year? How can I support myself throughout the school year? How can we find this balance? Because every parent feels that, whether you're a gym owner or an entrepreneur or working your 9 to 5. Everyone has stuff going on. Everyone has a million things on their plate. It's no different. Just interchange what I'm talking about to what you got going on in your life and realize that we all need support and that the school year and going back to school and everything mixed in there can be incredibly triggering, not just for your kids, but for you. And it can open old wounds for you. And I just felt like this episode was so important, but I realized even yesterday, like, I got to get myself right. And thank goodness I had that time last night. That ended up being a gift, even though, yes, I wanted to be with my kids last night. Having that time for me to truly reset allowed me to show up for Aria this morning in a way that I don't know if I could have yesterday. Well, without faking it, right? And then that's just, I can't do that. And she can see right through that anyway. So this morning I get over there and I go up in her room and making sure like her backpack's packed and all that jazz. And we take off. I get to drive her to school. I take her picture in front of the door first, like we have been, since she was in 4K. So even though I don't live there, like still get to kind of be a part of that, which I am very grateful for. And there was some tension between her and Arlo before, but again, it was just a simple miscommunication. There was just some unneeded tension in there. So even when we got in the car, I was like, okay, acknowledged it. Like, let's clear that. We don't need whatever just happened there. We don't need to take that with us. And she was like, okay, cool. And so we're driving along and we get to the intersection where we need to turn left to go to school. We're right there. I can see it. And all of a sudden she goes, oh shoot, I forgot my schedule. What? You what? Not a pencil case. Your schedule. The most important thing you need on the first day of middle school. Okay. And I know you parents all know that feeling, right? Where you're just like, oh, like your whole body tenses up and you're just like, oh, want to smack my head on this microphone. That's how I felt. And here's what happened. I felt that. And she sensed that. Even though it was a split second. Because I know enough now that being in that energy doesn't help at all. Oh, my dad's calling. Hi, Dad. I'll call you later. Doing a podcast, Dad. Oh, he's actually probably calling about knowing how I was feeling yesterday. So, and my mom reached out to me too. So, surrounded by love, I need to remember that. And that I don't have to go through these things alone. And so, yes, I'm getting better at that. Anyway, so this happens. I realize real quick, whoa, that energy would not be helpful. And so I addressed it right away. I'm like, ooh, I'm sorry, Aria. Obviously, I felt triggered in that moment because why didn't you remember your schedule? But I also told her I was also kind of upset with myself because I saw it sitting there and I thought to myself, I wonder if she needs that. And I didn't say it out loud. And if I would have, we would be turning left instead of right to go back home. So I'm taking on some of that as well. And also, this is something that you need to make sure of in the morning before you leave, that you actually have everything that you need. And let us know how we can help you with that. If we know these are the things, we can get into that habit and routine and support you in the morning so we're not in this situation. And so I was like, okay, cool. But now she's like, are we going to be late? I'm like, no, actually, we're not. And that was another good moment. I'm like, we've got time. We don't need to stress about this. But of course, we're coming up to red lights. And Aria's like, oh, come on, the red lights. Hey, let's not focus on the red lights. Let's start calling out green. Let's start seeing green. Let's start manifesting green. And so I start singing this dorky, turn the lights green song. She's like, Court's like, wow, Mom. But it started to shift the energy, right? And now she's playing along. Now she's seeing green lights and kind of realizes, hey, I don't know whatever you're doing there, wacko, but it's working. We're getting green lights. And we did the rest of the way home. No joke. So we get her schedule and we're coming back. And now I'm like, we need to lock this energy in. And so I gave her my phone. I'm like, turn on some music. Let's jam. And so she turns on, for those of you parents in that age range, Gnarly, which I'm not going to lie, it's a pretty catchy song, which I should maybe turn it into a jingle for the Tami Talks podcast. Tami Talks, Gnarly. This podcast, like Takis, it's the shit. Or not. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, go listen to that song. It is catchy. Yes, there's a swear word, but it's fun. So anyway, and so we were jamming out and it was so good. And it just felt like this is the energy I want her going into middle school with, not angry tension because neither one of us could clear the fact that she forgot her schedule and da-da-da-da-da. No, not having it. Not on my watch. And then I take my little opportunity to be like, okay, here we go. Let's focus on the best case scenario because she's going to be 12. And most kids in that age, they're thinking of the worst case scenario, right? Let's be honest. Most of us still do that. And I was like, or we focus on how awesome the day is and that you actually met some really cool people and your teachers are great. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on what is the best case scenario here. We need to make sure that we're protecting your energy and that you're not taking on anyone else's energy today because there are going to be a lot of emotions and feelings getting thrown around on the first day of middle school. So let's right now just kind of set that intention that we are protecting our energy today. We're not taking on other people's stuff. We're not taking anything personal. You be you. You show up with your awesome, amazing aura. And of course, I know a lot of parents are not talking like this to their kids. You guys are like, oh, poor Aria and Arlo. And trust me, they give me the looks like, but I know they're receiving it. And I want them to have that information going into school. Like, hey, yeah, I'm shielding up. And if Arlo needs to see himself as having some sort of superhero shield, cool. Be like, hey, buddy, we know when things get set at the playground, you shield that. That ain't yours. Right? Or you karate chop it away. And obviously with Aria, that language is going to be a little bit different. If you get into high school, that language is going to be a little bit different. And this is something I have thought about many times about creating some sort of workshop is like, how do we help our kids at each of those stages learn what is ego when are other people projecting onto you? And that's why I think I wasn't overly scared or emotional about Aria going into middle school because I know she knows these things. And so I felt actually really comfortable and safe and excited for her to start middle school. It was interesting. I didn't get emotional about it because I'm like, she's got this. I was actually excited. I'm like, she's got this. She's got this. And I know she's going to come home and sometimes like her ego just needs to spew and vent and I let her do that. But I know that she knows and she will often say it before I will of, yeah, I know they were acting this way because they probably maybe don't get seen at home. She knows those things because we talk about those things. And that so much of what happens in school and on the playground has nothing to do with us, but whatever that kid's got going on in their world and their home, in their emotional body, in their energetic body. And if we can help our kids understand that, hopefully we can start taking a lot less things personally and stop hurting each other with our words. Because yes, we get punished for physical things that happen, but man, the emotional and energetic pain that is caused, yeah, we all know. And that's why part of this podcast is meant to help us as parents also heal our inner child while our kids are going through it as well. Because oftentimes we always give our kids what we never had, right? Maybe we didn't have that emotional support when we came home from school and we got bullied or we got teased and it was like, suck it up, you're fine, they're whatever. And maybe you didn't feel seen and heard in that. And so you're trying to provide that for your kid, but maybe to the point where now it's like overbearing. I've done that. I overcompensated. Or sometimes we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. And so then we don't do anything. And now our kids feel like, well, I guess they don't really care, or they don't feel seen, or they don't feel heard. And so this does not have to be complicated. It can actually be really, really simple. And if we had to create this checkbox of how to support your kids in that transition back to school, keep it simple, right? Was that KISS? Keep it simple. I don't want to say this is stupid, but I want to keep it simple, Sally. Whatever. Anyway, we all have these basic needs. And if you listen to this podcast, you've heard me talk about them a million times, right? Everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants to feel heard. Everyone wants to be accepted for who they are. Everyone wants to be valued. And everyone wants to be loved unconditionally for exactly who they are, for who they authentically are. They don't want to have to change who they are to then be loved and accepted and all of those things. And some of us don't even know what that means, what that looks like, what that feels like, because we have been so far removed from that, probably since elementary, probably from middle school, and certainly high school. So many of these childhood wounds started then. And that's why when your kids are coming home and they're telling you stuff that's happening, you have to check yourself. Am I reacting from my wounded place? Or can I actually be fully present and see my child in this experience and hear them in this experience? Make sure that they feel seen and valued and loved through this experience and not judged by me, that I'm not coming and trying to fix it, making them think that something must be wrong with them or something's wrong with so-and-so, and like never actually getting to the root of what is going on. And so these basic needs are so, so important. And so if you could have a checkbox going back through that list to feel seen, I notice you. Something that you say, maybe it's the eye contact, to let them know I notice you right away. First thing in the morning, make sure that they know you see them. I know you're not a morning person, and this is not a fun time for you to get up, but I see you. It's just that I see you. I see you making the effort. And then especially when they get home, checking back in to make sure that they feel heard. I'm listening to you. And then actually be listening. Parents, I know, and I am so guilty of this. I have done it a million times where we're acting like we're listening, but are we really actively listening? Where we're making eye contact, where we're nodding? Because how many of us are multitasking? We're either on our phone and we're nodding, or we're driving and or we're cooking up supper. We're doing something because we got a million freaking things going on. Yeah. And this is one of those things, like, it can be so simple as just to set it down for 5 minutes and really engage. And this is where, even though I have been super busy over these last few months, it's this kind of intentionality, even if it's just for a little bit of time, that helps fill my kids' cups, help fill my cup, helps us connect. And what I have realized is this is not about perfection. It is about connection. I am far from perfect. And I have had to release a lot of mom guilt and things over these past few months because my kids did not have a super fun summer where we were going on vacations and going on these adventures. Nope, we were here in Madison, and mom was going to the gym a lot, and they were coming there with me folding towels and helping me build this dream. Not maybe this summer they intended. And I've acknowledged that with them because I want them to feel seen in the sacrifices they have made while mom is hustling, while mom is working really, really hard. And I think, again, just making sure that they feel seen in that and feel valued for the sacrifices that they have made, the value they have given by coming to the gym and helping out, knowing that that also helps my mama heart. And to just feel that unconditional love, like, yeah, mom, like, we know, we understand. And also with the knowing that next summer is redemption summer and that we are having a very different experience. Because I do know that I only have so much time with them. And yes, that eats at me. But if I don't go after my dreams, we will be stuck in the same situation, and I can't have that. So there's going to be some things that need to shift and that need to be sacrificed here and there. But when I can be intentional about these things, I know my kids' emotional needs are still being met. And believe it or not, even though physically I may not always be there because I'm at the gym or they're at their dad's, I know emotionally they feel safe when they're with me. And so that means everything, because I had shared on a couple episodes ago when I was figuring out my father wounds, and even though my dad was there, he was working a lot, but he was there. There was a gap where there was emotionally he wasn't there because he was going through his own stuff. I'm absolutely going through my own stuff. No doubt about that. My kids know that, but I let them into that in a way that feels appropriate, where I don't hide when I'm having a heavy day. I let them know that. I'm like, yeah, mom's just releasing. I got a lot of heaviness that I'm trying to clear. Sometimes Arlo will go outside with me and ground just for that because he knows. And so I'm not trying to hide that, because if I did, they're going to sense that. They are so intuitive, but then they could end up making it about them. Like, well, mom just loves the gym more than us. She must care about those people more than us. Or even if I would have sat down and did the podcast yesterday when they were with me, to be like, well, I guess her podcast is more important. It's stuff like that, right? Our ego creates these stories. And that's why I try to be very open and transparent with my kiddos of what's going on in my world, so that way they're not creating those stories about it being something related to them. And so these things around school even make such an important difference, because then your kid isn't maybe acting out at school to try to feel seen because they feel seen at home. And maybe they're not the ones screaming and yelling in class all the time, trying to feel heard because they feel heard at home by you. And this is where we have to take radical responsibility for our kids' behaviors and look at that. Be like, is there a need that isn't being met at home? Because your egos want to project it onto the teachers. Your egos want to project it onto the other kids in the classroom. But this is where we have to put that big old mirror up to ourselves and be like, is there an emotional need that isn't being met at home that they are now trying to seek out at school? And maybe it's not always that they're getting in trouble. Maybe it's that they're perfectionist at school. Maybe they're that overachiever and they're striving for perfection to their detriment. And now it's creating crippling anxiety around test times and sporting events and all of these things. Because if they don't win, if they don't get an A, they're going to disappoint. Guess who? You. Because somewhere their ego has told them that mom and dad don't see me, appreciate, love me unless I'm perfect. And this is where, oh shit, as I'm saying this and you're feeling stuff coming up for you, oh, perhaps this is maybe where I'm projecting my own wounds and how I felt growing up onto my kids. Or maybe you've swung the pendulum so far, right, that now maybe there are no standards, maybe there are no boundaries, maybe whatever. Sometimes the pendulum swings a little bit too far. And we have to be really mindful of that. Like, I'm still the parent and I need to make sure these emotional needs are being met. So there are times I had to kind of get on Aria the other day. It didn't feel great, but I'm still her parent. I can do it in a way that she receives it. I have to be really mindful that it's triggering me. And this actually was about her room. And it was very triggering for me because it's stuff that I'm still dealing with. Like, I love a clean space and I can maintain that until my actual life starts getting cluttered and the space gets cluttered, or vice versa. And I know that's triggering for my inner child. I know exactly why that's triggering for her. And so when I see Aria and got a banana peel on the carpet, I'm like, no. But I recognized why I kind of came in the way I did about it, and then had to, check yourself. And then we had a good talk about it. Then she could receive it. But when I came at her with my wounded energy, she did not receive that well. So we have to think about that when our kids are coming home. Someone made fun of them. Someone made them feel small. A teacher called them out and they didn't have the answer. They felt embarrassed or whatever it was. We need to be grounded in ourselves in order to be grounded for them, because that is what they need from us. They do not need us to come in and swoop in and fix things and provide all these solutions or immediately call up and yell at the principal or the parent. It's not about that. Get deeper into this. And what is your child trying to communicate to you? And what is your inner child also trying to communicate to you? Because all of this stuff that is coming up, and if it is triggering you because of your kid, it's because of your inner child. So I know you guys are like, oh my God, what did I just press play on? But that's part of recognizing this, is that yes, while we give our kids maybe what we never had, that can feel great as a parent, but that will only go so far until your inner child gets triggered and says, what about me? What about us? I was bullied. How have you supported me? You're my biggest critic now. You're my biggest bully now. Like, I don't even care what Jimmy said in second grade. This is the fact that you look in the mirror and call yourself fat every morning. It's triggering those old wounds. But here we are, the ones doing it to ourselves. Your child will show you. Your kids are your biggest teacher. They are your best mirrors for what still needs to be healed within you. And so if you get triggered because they're late, they're putzing around and they're forgetting stuff, or they're not getting their schoolwork done or whatever, and if that's bringing up some really intense emotion, sit with that. Sit with that before you try to then have that conversation with them. Because if you come in all hot-headed and just, laying down the rules and and disciplining immediately, you're going to miss a really important opportunity for them to actually receive what you're saying in a supportive, loving way versus shutting them down and getting nowhere and just seeing this pattern repeat as your relationship suffers. And they start shutting you out more and more and more because they don't feel safe around your energy to be able to share what happened in their day, how they're actually feeling, how they're worried about this test. Because all you ever say is like, it'll be fine. It's just a test. Not to them. Not to them. And so this is part of it, is we have to remember as adults, we know some of the stuff in school don't mean shit as an adult, right? Even some of the standardized testing and all the math tests that I freaked out about, I'm like, I'm not using any of that anymore. To say that to Aria does not help in the energy and the situation that she's in currently. And I've talked about this with Arlo and his Legos. When he gets upset about something, I know it's not a big freaking deal. It's a freaking Lego. But for him, that's a big deal. That is in his little world. So we kind of have to imagine ourselves back in that middle school place, and that where some of you are like, no, I'm not even going there, because a lot of people have a lot of pain stuck back in middle school, stuck back in elementary. Your inner child is still sitting in that classroom at that desk all alone because you have refused to go back and sit with them and hear them, acknowledge the pain and how that bullying felt, how it felt to get laughed at when you stuttered over the sentence or you didn't know the answer, or when you missed that basket, the game-winning basket, and now you feel like a failure, or whatever it was. Someone made fun of your outfit, called you fat, whatever it was. You a whale like me in my sophomore year. And so if we can sit with that and almost going back to our inner child in that moment and closing your eyes and sitting at the desk with them and be like, I see you. I see you in this experience. And I want you to tell me how that felt so we can get up and leave this classroom. We don't have to stay here. We don't have to stay stuck in second grade anymore. And I actually just read something the other day that our responses to things are actually from where we were first kind of quote unquote emotionally injured is where we tend to react from. And so sometimes when you think, God, you're acting like a child. Yeah. You might be a grown ass adult and it's like you're throwing a tantrum because your inner child is. And so sometimes when we think of people that are so immature, well, some of these people had trauma in the womb. They were babies when they were experiencing some of this stuff. And so it's just, again, about being compassionate. Not everyone had that chance to develop healthy, emotional, resilient skills and tools because they were in survival mode the second they took their first breath. So they weren't 5 or 6 or 7 when they had their first incident. And so just being compassionate when people act the way that they do, knowing that ego is like, well, that's what I go to. That's what I know. That's where you're kind of like frozen in time almost, but we don't have to stay there. And that's where as an adult, we can know like, hey, This isn't so scary. I'm going to open that door. I'm going to open that classroom door. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to my second grade Tami, my third grade self, my fourth grade self, and just remembering that moment and allowing myself to hear her or him, have them express how that felt, but what they needed in that moment as well. How, if your child was sitting in that classroom and went through the exact same experience that you did, how would you support them? What would you say to them? Because that's exactly what your inner child needs from you, not from anyone else, from you. And that is what you can help teach your kids in these situations as well. One, that they can come to you with anything, and you're always going to hold space for them. And with Aria, I have to be very, very mindful not to rush in with my lessons. And so if you are the parent that wants to come in and fix it right away, you want to make it feel better, hold up on that. Sometimes they just need to feel seen and heard in their experience. And then when they're ready, then you can start to bring some insight, bring some suggestions, ask them their input so they feel valued. And what do you think would work here? What would you do differently next time? Ask them. Because again, Arlo comes up with amazing ideas all the time. In his episode, I asked him, what should parents do when kids have big feelings? And he said, stay with them. It's pretty profound. Pretty simple, but a 6-year-old straight up, just stay with them. But we don't because we're uncomfortable with our own emotions. And so we expect our kids to have to deal with them on their own because that's how we had to deal with them growing up. We dealt with it alone, so they should too. And that is not what they need in that moment. And so we have to allow ourselves to be able to sit in the discomfort so we can sit in it with them. Sometimes I just need to sit in it with them. Be like, that sounds like that was a really rough day. And maybe even ask them, like, how did that make you feel? And how are you feeling now? What can we do now to support you through this? How can we clear that energy? Maybe it's more like you just say, like, how can we shift the energy or whatever? How can we shake it off? Whatever you got to say. Maybe you play the Taylor Swift song after school and you get into a little ritual. Shake it off. Really, it is sometimes about creating those rituals, thinking about the morning routine. How can we set the tone for the day? How can I make sure my kid feels seen and heard and loved and valued and all those things before they even leave the door? Right? Letting them know that whatever happens today, you're going to come home and I'm going to love you exactly the same. Whether you get an F on a test, whatever happens, my love for you doesn't change. I love you unconditionally. When we get home, that is a hard time because I know so many of you, whether you're going off to practices and it's just, you're here, there, and you're everywhere. It doesn't have to mean that you're having this kumbaya dinner every night because a lot of you aren't going to have that. You've got sports and you've got music and dance and all of these things happening. And so sometimes school time can feel really stressful in that regard. So it's about really creating these moments of intention. Okay, when they come home from school, I make sure I set my phone down, whatever I'm doing, I set it down, I look them in the eyes, and I don't ask, like, how was your day? Because you all know the answer you're going to get. It was fine. Oh, it sucked. It was all right. Okay. And you're like, why don't they ever tell me anything? That's a really overwhelming question when you think about how many emotions and thoughts and feelings a kid is going through throughout their day. And if we were really honest with ourselves, when people ask us that, don't we kind of give them the, it's fine, I'm okay answer too? When really, if someone actually took the time to be like, no, really, how was your day? And you felt that you had the time and the space and the energy they were giving you, they were holding space for you in that, you would actually share it. You know what? I had this morning meeting that, and then it's the energy around the asking. She really does want to know. She's looking me in the eyes. She put her phone down. She's sitting down next to me. She's nodding her head. Oh, okay, this does feel safe. She does want to know, because the worst thing is when you ask them and then you're distracted. And I know this as an adult, this happened to me. And this is where, again, I started to turn the volume down and just give the quick answer, because I'm like, they don't actually really care what I got going on in my life, because I had been asked that. Oh, hey, how's life going? How's this? And I would start talking, and all of a sudden that person was looking off somewhere else and asking someone else these questions. I'm like, oh my God. And it was embarrassing. Am I that disinteresting or do they not care about what I got going on? Do they not care about me? And so I just stopped sharing. And when they asked, I would just, oh, it's good. It's fine. So guess what? I'm no longer feeling seen, but my ego is going to find a way to meet that need somewhere else. Whether that's positively or negatively, who knows? And at certain points in my life, it wasn't great. It wasn't positive. Not when I made some of the best choices to try to feel seen. And so when you think about that as an adult, what does it feel like to be in a meeting and to just express this really awesome idea or this big thing that was going on, and it was like no one heard you? You bet that's going to trigger you. And it's probably, not probably, it is triggering your inner child. If that bothers you, but then you go home and you do the same thing to your kid and you wonder why they're not talking and expressing more about their day. Yeah. Because you know what it's like to feel shut down. And we're doing that exact same thing. Because we often don't want to feel that rejection of people not being interested in what we're doing. Or, again, we swing the pendulum the other way a little too far, and now we're asking a million questions, and now they're like, ah! So maybe it's, again, more about learning what is the right rhythm with my kiddo when they come home from school. What do they actually need? Because I can't swoop in with my questions and my things so I can check my boxes and get my needs met and make sure I'm being the perfect parent. No. What do they need? They need to come in and have some chill time. They need to be able to clear energy from the day. And so giving them that space and be like, hey, I just want you to do your own thing. And then I'll come in and check in on you and see how your day went in, half hour. Okay. And let that be maybe a little routine that you get into, or at least that it happens somewhere throughout the night. I know last school year, Aria and I, after Arla would go to bed, we would come out on the couch and we would talk about our day. And that was really special, sacred time. And when summer came and, all that got discombobulated, that was something that disconnected us. And when we didn't have that intentional time, we felt it. We both felt it. We would both start kind of like, because when we get like that, that's what's happening. We have been feeling disconnected from one another. But when we are intentional, and when she's in the kitchen and I give her a hug and it's like an extra long hug, and I just really say to her, I love you so much. Not just the quick, I love you, check the box, I said it, like to feel it, to really feel it, to pull her back, to look her in the eyes. And whatever I'm saying, whether I'm giving her a compliment or it's just I'm noticing something, like I'm noticing your eyes are so green today, or I noticed the effort. Again, when we can think about, I see you in the effort that you put into this versus the outcome. Please do not always acknowledge the outcome, the test score, the score of the game, their performance, effort. If we can talk about their effort and acknowledge their effort, and I noticed your effort. And even if you maybe didn't notice their effort, that can also be a conversation, right? So that way they can start to build some of that ownership. And so it's not all that it's like airy fairy and we're just like kumbaya in here all the time, right? Because we have to be parents too. We are modeling the future leaders here, our children. But the best thing that we can do is provide that emotional maturity, that emotional intelligence. Like physically, yeah, they can have new clothes and a roof over their head and the coolest new shoes, whatever. That doesn't mean shit. And you all know it as an adult. How far did that get any of us? Oh, great. I had the coolest new shoes. Whoop-de-doo. Now you know as an adult that never mattered and that it was just to feel accepted and to feel seen. And we don't want that for our kids. But we have to make sure that we're not projecting that onto them because we're worried that they're going to get made fun of. Well, I don't actually want you to be you because you're kind of dorky. So maybe you should tone that down a little bit when you go to school. No, full on dork it up. 100%. Find your other dorks. Find your people. And I told Aria that too. I'm like, I'm so excited for you because I feel like you're going to find your people. So please make sure you go in as authentic Aria. Because then you're going to find truly authentic friends, not friends you have to wear a mask for, not friends you have to pretend for. And that was part of the message today. I'm like, Aria, your aura, your energy speaks for you. Let that come through. And please, please, please don't change who you are at all to try to fit in. Your people will find you. And I've used the example of the people that have come into my life, and she sees that. She knows. She has seen her dorky mom. But knows that her mom has really, really amazing connections and friends that are soul family. I don't perform for people anymore just so I can fit in and be tolerated or make people feel comfortable. I don't. And she has noticed that shift in me. And I have seen that come back out in her because there was a time where she was boxing that up. And so now I see her stepping more into Aria. Oh, and this was like the cherry on top today. So when I was in high school, we grew up in a very small town about an hour and a half west of Madison. So coming to Madison was a big freaking deal. We had 200 kids in our entire high school. I knew everybody in our entire school all the way through elementary. Oh yeah, that's your little brother or your cousin, your third cousin? Oh yeah, I know them. We actually had to ask my grandma if I was related to people before I would date them and things because that's how small our town was and how big my families are. No joke. But anyway, very different experience here. Very different. There's, I don't even like 400, 600 kids in her middle school. So it's a very different experience. And so I'm having to kind of think about what she's going through that I haven't experienced and be able to acknowledge that along with her. Be like, all right, I don't know what it's like to be in a school this big. But what I can help you with is how to just be you, because I had to unlearn a lot of things because I didn't do that. And I became who I thought everyone wanted me to be and needed me to be. And now, as a 42-year-old adult, starting to feel comfortable in who I am again and not dialing down my weirdness or my spiritual woo-woo, whatever, to anyone anymore. Because I want people in my life that I truly vibe with. And it's okay if we don't. Like, you do you, but that means I'm also going to do me. And I want that for her as well. And so I was actually really excited that she's equipped with those tools to know how to do that. And so being able to check in about those things as well. When we notice our kid is acting out of character, like, because maybe they want to fit in with the popular girls all of a sudden, like, why is that? Like, getting into that a little bit. And that's certainly going to bring up stuff for us as parents, right? So this is real stuff going on in our kids' lives, but us as well. And again, as a parent, it is not about perfection. It is just about connection. And when you can connect on those things, those 5 things every single day, and yeah, there's going to be some days you mess up. You didn't see them. You're running around like crazy. You can acknowledge that. Be like, hey, you know what? Last night we were so busy with all the sports stuff. I forgot to ask you what your day was like and how you were feeling after school. Like, I'm sorry about that. Do you want to talk about it now? They'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm like, okay, well, just know if anything happened and you want to talk about it, like, let's spend some time tonight, create some space for that. Okay. And then do it. Do it. Because your kids will remember. They may not bring it up to be like, hey, did you remember you said we were going to do this? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're waiting. And kids are, they can be little testers like that, right? No one wants to be put up for a test that they don't know that they're being tested on, right? But we do that to people all the time. We have these expectations. Well, I wonder if they remembered it was my birthday. I wonder if they remembered that, da-da-da-da-da. Just don't do that to people. Don't set people up. But your kids may do that. They may remember, be like, I want to see if she remembers. Because then their ego will create this story. If you didn't, oh, must not be important enough. They don't have time or the energy for me, too busy for me. And we can't let that happen with our little people. We can't let that happen with our young adults because they will go out and try to meet those needs in some other relationship, some other career down the road. And that is often detrimental to who they are becoming. And it actually almost, it masks who they are. And we don't want that. We've all been there. We had those terrible high school relationships. We had those friendships that completely dissolved or blew up for no reason. We've been there. But if we can look at how can I make sure that they are emotionally supported at home? This starts at home. This starts at home, but we have to be able to take a real hard look at ourselves and making sure that we're also meeting our own needs so that way we're not reacting from our kids' stuff from our wounded inner child. And that ego isn't the one responding when they come home having a hard day at school or when they do need discipline. And now we've like, ooh, probably came down a little hard. Maybe they didn't receive that. And I say that stuff to Aria all the time about when she says things to Arlo. Like, it's not that you were wrong in what you were saying, it's how you delivered it. Because you saw how he just shut down. When most of the time he's very receptive to what you say. but it's how you deliver it and your energy behind it. When you know that there was a little tension, there was a little snark to that. Same thing with me. She knows, she picks up on that so quickly. Even today with the whole schedule thing, she knew the second I was just like, And anything I would have said after that would not have been helpful. She would have not have been able to receive that. But I quickly corrected myself, acknowledged it, owned it. I didn't try to hide the fact that I just felt all this tension and rage. I was like, hey, you saw it. I saw it. You felt it. I felt it. I'm sorry. That's my own stuff. And yes, we need to be more responsible in the morning and da 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 da. Then she could receive it after that. If I would have said that first, now she feels like, oh, my mom's mad at me. Now she thinks I'm irresponsible and I'm a failure and blah, 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 blah. And I know sometimes when I say these examples, it seems like it's over the top. It's not. It is not. And this happens so subconsciously. We don't even know that ego is back there creating this like massive story and narrative that we are, as adults, trying to undo. Like, whoa, none of that was actually ever true. Where did you come up with that? Like, oh, well, remember when you forgot your schedule when you were starting middle school? That's where that came from. That's where you now became overly critical and overly responsible and all of those things. Because remember that one time that your mom flipped out on you in the car because you forgot your schedule? No. But it happens like that. And if you can think back to those moments in your life, sometimes there's so many of you that know it was like this one moment, this one thing that someone said, this one interaction, this one situation can sometimes change the trajectory of your life because of the story your ego created around it. And we have to be careful as parents that we're not now projecting it onto our kids when they come to us with stuff. And when we're feeling emotionally reactive, that is for you. That is not to be projected onto them. You got to check yourself before you wreck that relationship. And actually, there's a whole podcast very early on. And that was when I didn't have the lighting or the mics figured out. And I was just effing around. I'm like, I'll just sit down and play around with this. And I ended up recording a whole podcast. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But and it was called Check Yourself Before You Project Yourself. That would be a good one to come back to. Or there's also another episode that says heal so your kids don't have to. Also another really important one to kind of complement this one here. If you're like, oh man, yeah, this is actually bringing up a lot of stuff for me. Whether again, that was elementary school, whether that was middle school, high school, you might have a situation or story or moment from all of them. I think a lot of us do. And it's okay to acknowledge that. It's okay to be grateful for the experiences you had and the things you learned and the friends you made, and still be holding on to that because, again, maybe your inner child still hasn't felt seen in that moment because you tried to brush it over and tell yourself that you were over it, when obviously you're not. When you're snapping because your kid forgot something, or when you're mad at them because they missed a play, or all of a sudden they're sleeping in and they're running late and now you're just agitated as all get out. When we have these intense emotional reactions ourselves, that is information for you. And your kid is showing you that in the way that you can actually help them versus telling them what to do and getting them on a schedule and berating them and disciplining them is work on you. Because they're likely going to continue the pattern until you fix it within yourself. And I know that to be true because I've seen that with both of my kids, especially Aria. She was a complete reflection of me. And we're still working through some of that undoing of people pleasing and also those sharp reactions again, because she learned that from me. Not just from me, but she learned some of that from me. Whereas now I'm trying to be more emotionally calm and regulated, or at least they know, ooh, mom's going to get regulated. I'll tell them, like, guys, I need a moment. And then we can talk about this. And then they use that time themselves to get regulated because they know we're not getting off the hook. We're talking about this. That's just happening. But then they know I'm going to come back in better energy. No one wants that. Rah! Nothing good happens from that space. And so they know, hey, if mama's going off to take some time, she's going to come back calm and we can have a safe conversation. And now they know they can come to me with things. Because if your kid isn't opening up to you about what's going on in their day, I know this is like a gut punch. But it's likely because they don't feel emotionally safe. Something in your energy Like, maybe I know that she's had a hard day. Maybe they see you checking out of your own emotions or you having these outbursts about your coworker or whatever, and these conversations that you're having. And they're like, ooh, well, I don't want to upset her. I don't want to make her life any more stressful or his life any more stressful. So I'm just not going to say anything. I'm not going to tell them about my hard day. Like, oof. And that's very much how I felt. And I shared that experience with what my dad was going through, is that if he was going through a hard time, I wasn't going to be a burden. So I learned that my needs don't matter. And when there's arguments and things at home, the last thing you want to do is create any conflict. You are going to become the people pleaser, right? You're the peacemaker. You never want to rock the boat. And kids learn that very quickly based on your reactions to the things they do and say. Are you a safe person to come to when they make a mistake? Are you a safe person to come to when they need to cry? Or are you just telling them to suck it up? You'll get over it. Tomorrow's another day. Well, maybe you shouldn't have done that, or whatever it is. Do they feel emotionally safe in your energy? And I am saying this from a place of love because I have been there, because there was a time that Aria did not feel safe. And you can go back and listen to her episode when we talked about that. We have done a lot of healing together, but there was a time where she did not feel comfortable and safe telling me how she felt because she didn't want to make me sad or didn't want to make me mad. I was like, whoa, hold up. I was like, I am the adult here. I should be able to handle that. But I couldn't for a time period because I was acting from my wounded inner child. My ego was the one always reacting. And so it made sense. But now when I can come to her in grounded and safe energy, now she comes and tells me those things. She tells me when she's mad. She tells me when she's sad, especially when she's mad at me, which is, can sometimes be hard to hear. But I tell her, I need to know those things because otherwise I can't do anything with it. And I know if it is triggering me, that's for me. That isn't about you. You are showing me, and I thank you for that. You are giving me a gift and being able to show me what I still need to heal within so that I can do a better job for you. And that is our role as parents. It is not just to provide the school supplies, to drive them from here and there and get them to practice and make sure they get up on time. Our job is so much more important. And sometimes if your kid has found a teacher that they have really latched onto, it's because that teacher is meeting an emotional need. Maybe that teacher really sees how unique they are and that their dorkiness or quirkiness is actually the most incredible thing about them. But maybe you got teased for that growing up. And so you aren't quite sure if it's safe for your kid to be like that. And so your kid doesn't feel fully able to express themselves around you because of your old projections, but that teacher sees it. The teacher sees it because the teacher isn't bringing their wounded stuff into the classroom for that kid. So they see how talented they are. And man, that energy when someone feels seen, someone feels heard, there's nothing like that. And so if you want that kind of connection, that's on you. And you have that ability when we can be real and honest with ourselves and really look at ourselves. Am I taking the time? Am I being intentional with truly seeing them, truly accepting, letting them know that I think those things about you are incredible and amazing. Arlo said the other day, actually, it was just yesterday. What did he say? I don't know, something like that. He was a dork or he was weird or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I love that about you. And he's like, I'm the weirdest. I'm like, you are pretty weird. And I love that about you, Arlo. Please stay weird. Be the weirdest. Because I want him to just know that that's okay to be you. I don't want you to box up this version of who you think I want Arlo to be or anyone else wants Arlo to be. Like, just be you. And I'm instilling those messages now when he's 7, because I hope that he can hold on to that and find people in his life who also help him feel seen and that he is just uniquely Arlo. But we want to make sure that we're not dimming our own kids' lights, talents, personalities, voice, interest because of our own stuff. Okay. Yeah. So maybe if they want to pursue art and you're like, well, that's not going to pay the bills. How are you going to take care of yourself? And now you're projecting all of your own scarcity mindset onto your kid. Now they're like, well, yeah, I guess I'll go to school to, be a doctor or get into the trades or do whatever. When really what I wanted to do was paint. Really what I wanted to do was go to art school. And that is how we cut off parts of our inner child, parts of our soul, when really maybe that was the gateway to abundance, is because now you're operating in your gifts. But because of your own fear of scarcity or lack, they're like, well, maybe you should try this because it provides more. And all of a sudden we get into these 9 to 5s that we feel like we're slowly dying inside, but yes, we're paying the bills. And I get that. Like, there are pros and cons to that, right? Following your dreams. Because it isn't just like, oh, let's just magically pay the bills. I'm doing what God asked me to do, sitting in front of this mic. Does it pay my bills? Absolutely not. I do this for free every week. Have I reached out for sponsors and all of those things again? No. Is that on my to-do list? Absolutely. Because I have done a lot of work around recognizing the value that this is, the value that this provides. But I know this is about my capacity to feel safe receiving for the work that I do. Because a lot of people who are operating their gifts feel like it is a gift. It's something I just love and enjoy. And so it's hard to then feel like you should receive something for that because you just love to give it. And so this is so much more about money mindset or even worthiness. This is about emotionally regulating and feeling safe in that. And all of these things are things that we learn as a child. If we can help our kids feel emotionally safe and regulated now, again, hopefully they're not having to learn how to do that when they're a 42-year-old adult who's in the pressure cooker of life, right? And having to learn all of that on top of owning a gym and on top of parenting and on top of healing generational trauma and all these things where it's just like, yeah, that's where I said earlier, like it almost feels like we're in this like spiritual war. I had a good soul friend, soul brother reach out to me last night and feeling the same thing. We're in eclipse energy right now. And so things are going to get real intense. And that's what it felt like for me yesterday. And I was like, okay, this is on par with the energy, but there are going to be things that are literally eclipsed from your life, things that no longer belong. And you can either flow with that and know that, okay, this is happening for me. This is meant to release, even though, man, this was my comfort zone, or man, this was that cushy job. This was that paycheck. This was that whatever. All of a sudden, if God and the universe is like, yeah, that doesn't align with you. And this is all fake. This is just, to meet your ego's needs of feeling seen and valued and safe because you've got this steady income when really, again, your soul is slowly dying inside because you have this hobby, you have this interest, you have this drive to serve in a completely different way, and you're not doing it. At some point, God intervenes and be like, yo, course correct here. So how sharp do you want that corner to be? Or how hard and fast do you want that tower to fall? This is where, when we think about this kind of energy, like, okay, whatever is coming in and out of my life, I have to trust that that is meant for the greater good. That is meant for me to find alignment, even if that means getting rid of things or people or whatever. I have to figure out how to embrace that and learn how to feel emotionally safe and regulated in that. And that was going back to the episode about father wounds, in that emotional abandonment that I was feeling, that was for me to sit with. It wasn't about this other person. It wasn't even really about my dad. It was about when I abandoned myself, when times and emotions get really hard and heavy, and how we want to just like escape instead of actually sitting in that and feeling it. And so, yeah, I think this episode, it's one of those that I'll put some notes together, and I didn't look at them at all. And I'm not even sure if I covered anything I wanted to talk about, but here we are 1 hour and 10 minutes in. Oh, but anyway, I hope you found something useful in this. And if nothing else, know that this is an incredibly important time, not only in your kid's life, but in your life, and to learn how to honor your needs. But this can be an incredible time for you to do the healing work yourself and tend to that inner child. Go back into that classroom and sit down next to them and hear their side of the story. Feel what they needed to feel. Support them in the way that they needed to be supported back then. And if you have a hard time doing that for you, imagine if it were your kid. And don't try to tough love them through this just because that's how you were taught and how it was back then. I don't give a shit. Truly tap into your heart. What did they truly need? What would have felt right and good in that moment to just have received a hug and not told to go in your room, tough it out and cry it out, get back on the field? What if someone would have actually knelt down and said, I see you. I saw how hard you went after that play. I know you fumbled and I know you felt like you left the team down, but I know your heart is in this game and you gave it everything you had, or whatever the story is. This is about truly tapping into your heart space and what does my kid need from there? What does my inner child still need from there? Let your inner child be your guide, but do not forget about them. Because when you get running around and doing all the sports and stuff things, if your needs get put on the back burner and you stop taking care of yourself because now suppers aren't being made and now you're running to fast food every night and you're skipping your workouts and all these things and you're forgetting about you because you're doing all these things for your kids because you want to feel like the super parent, your inner child is going to feel abandoned by you. So that's where you have to make sure you are taking care of yourself so that way you can be that grounded, calm, safe energy for your kids. But you can't do that if your inner child is pissed off at you. And that's why for me, working out again is so much more than that in the morning because that's how I can tend to me first. My inner child's like, thank you. You moved our bodies today and we felt strong and empowered and now we can go take on our day. That's the energy I do that in. And when I don't do that, I feel off because it's like, well, what about us? Because usually those are the mornings where I am running here, there, and everywhere, and I'm not doing anything for myself. My inner child's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? I thought we took care of us first. I thought we checked in with us first. And those are the days that the days tend to get away from you, right? And I get to the end of the day, now my inner child's like, awesome, great, you didn't check in with me once, cool. But that isn't true anymore. I mean, sometimes like I had that burnout, so there was some of that. But in the meantime, I was still working out. I was still getting my shakes. I was still getting my water. I was checking those boxes, which maybe helped, but we can't forget about those emotional needs and that I really just needed to connect with myself and my inner child while I was so busy in doing those things. And even if it would just have been 5 minutes, I needed to give myself that time and I didn't. And I learned the hard way again. Again, it's not about perfection. It is about connection to ourselves, to our inner child, to our higher power, to our connection to our own kids, and making sure that they can feel safely connected to you, not obligated to connect to you, safely and willingly connected to you. So I will wrap it up with this and ask you that you start to think about what kind of little ritual routine could I get into with my kids. That way I'm checking the box, but checking the box with a lot of love and intention because I want to make sure that they feel seen, heard, valued, accepted, and loved unconditionally, no matter what, no matter how they come home from school. And I want you to do the same thing for yourself, no matter what your workday looked like. How can you love yourself through it? How can you love yourself through it? How can you love your inner child through it so that way you can then be there for your kids? So I ask you this, how can you meet your own emotional needs? What's something that you can do for yourself and for your inner child to make sure you're meeting your emotional needs? And then how can you do that intentionally for your kids? So let me know if anything in this episode resonated, hit home. I know I got a little like, oh, look at yourself. And that can be hard. Those messages can be hard. But if you're in a place where you're ready to look at this stuff for your kids, for your inner child, shouldn't be so triggering. If your ego's still defensive, that's okay too. Meet yourself there. But let these messages sit in that there's no blame, there's no shame. We have all been there, myself included. But it is our responsibility. Our wounds are not our fault, but they are our responsibility because we do not want to pass them down to that next generation. And we don't want to have to see that playing out in their elementary, middle school, and high school years. We can be the change right now by taking radical responsibility for our own inner child, meeting our own emotional needs, and teaching our kids how to do the same. Because when you are showing them, not only through how you're doing it for yourself, but how you're doing it for them, you're teaching them how to do it for themselves. And that is equipping them with tools for their life. That is equipping them for tools for their future. All right. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in, for pressing play. So if this episode helped you or resonated in any way, please like, comment, share, subscribe. All of those things make such a huge difference. Those are all free ways you can support this little podcast. And hopefully it'll help the podcast get out there more so I can stop getting all of these emails from random people telling me like, hey, do you want help getting your podcast out there? And I'm like, I'm trusting that when things are supposed to go viral, that they'll go viral. And right now, God and the universe are like, not yet. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. But anyway, thank you so much for being here and for exchanging energy with me and holding space for me as I go through all of this with you. All right, until next Tuesday, we'll be back. See you then.